How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. We just got some pretty alarming news last night, at least for some people. We got news that the US government's debt is actually being downgraded, which has huge implications for the stock market and the crypto market. Last time this happened, the stock market fell 6.5% in a day. I also need to cover some of the other news, including MicroStrategy getting ready to buy another $1 billion worth of Bitcoin here soon. We have one of the top accounting firms talking about Bitcoin. We have news on some of the miners and one miner that actually doubled their holdings last month. And CZ talking about 4 again, which he usually says right before something bad happens. And I just got news about what is happening with Binance. And you should get your crypto out now. You should get your money out now. There's no reason to keep it on. I'll explain what's happening towards the end of the video. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on that bell notification underneath the video so you can see future videos just like this one. And if you want to know what I'm buying and selling, you can check out the link below to the Patreon. Let's get into it. So Bitcoin was under 28,000 yesterday, then went up to 30,000, now back down around the same exact price. Can't seem to move right now at all, but it moved up because of this news. Fitch downgrades US long-term rating from to AA plus from AAA. They say there are a couple different reasons for this. The repeated debt limit, political standoffs, and last-minute resolutions have eroded confidence in fiscal management, which makes sense. How can you let a country get to the very edge of having one of these massive problems, defaulting, and not figure out some way to get through it faster? Why did there have to be so many political standoffs? They also highlighted the rising general government deficit, which anticipates to rise to 6.3% of gross domestic product in 2023 from 3.7% in 2022. We also know that the amount that we're just spending on loans or spending on interest as a country continues to move up as they have to pay higher and higher interest rates because of the Fed increasing the overall interest rate to try to bring down inflation. So the US is in a tricky spot. They're spending a lot on debt. They're still growing in debt significantly. We have a huge deficit, and there's no end in sight, really. I guess one thing you could do is print your way out of it. Try to print more and more currency so your debt becomes less because your GDP skyrockets and you can tax more. The problem with that is it goes against the Fed mandate of keeping inflation low. However, when this happened, we actually saw Bitcoin push up in price a little bit, maybe because when there's turmoil, we see Bitcoin do well. We saw that with the banks earlier. It went from under 29,000 to about 30,000, and now it's kind of right back down. So it's not making too much of a move, but we know that this has happened in the past as well. Now, Bitcoin dominance up to about 50%, moving back up from hitting about 49.5. So a nice little retrace, then possibly moving back up. Now, we've seen this in the past. We actually saw S&P downgrade the US government debt back in 2011. So this happened on a Friday afternoon, and the next day, the S&P 500 plummeted by 6.5%. This causes the government to have to pay higher interest rates in theory, which means that stocks are less attractive. And, stocks that have a huge amount of business here in the U.S. also could be hurt if you do think that the U.S. dollar is going to go away or that the U.S. is not going to be the economic powerhouse anymore. And then it could just be crumbling down from there. But keep in mind, we do have great technology. We have a good system of capitalism here to build great companies. So I don't think long term we're going to have to really worry about this too much in our lifetimes. But some people do think that Bitcoin is going to be the next world's reserve currency. So you might want to get your hands on some right now. And now the whole stock market is down as well. When we look at this, a lot of red because of this downgrade. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a pretty rough day for the rest of the day, and maybe this takes some wind out of the sails of the stock market for a little while until we get maybe the next CPI report. But part of it's going to depend on some of the big earnings this week as well. To be clear though, I think that this is a buying opportunity. If we actually fall down, it could be a nice time to buy into some stocks before the next big bull run I mean, when you look at 2011, even though the stock market fell 6.5% a day, then you had a 10-year bull run basically going up to COVID, and even through COVID, really 12-year bull run. So just because one little piece of news comes out like this and it causes the market to fall a little bit in a day, I don't think is a huge negative catalyst long term. I think it doesn't really change the trajectory too much of the overall market. The US government has a lower credit rating than Microsoft and Johnson & Johnson. I knew about Microsoft. I didn't know this about Johnson & Johnson until today, but that is interesting that a company can have a better credit rating than the US government. In terms of Bitcoin, we did get some news from MicroStrategy that they are trying to issue another $750 million in MSTR equity to buy even more Bitcoin. So they're trying to become an even bigger holder of Bitcoin. And the stock price is actually falling a bit today. MicroStrategy is down to about 405, which is down about 6.7% at the time of this recording. Overall, this will probably help Bitcoin's price. I mean, when you think about it from MicroStrategy's point of view, let's say they sell more shares, right? As long as people are willing to pay for those shares, and the company is actually keeping one-to-one with the value of their underlying asset, which is Bitcoin, they can just buy up a significant amount of Bitcoin, and because they're buying, it should increase the price of Bitcoin, or at least increase the scarcity, which increases the value of the rest of their company, which is pretty interesting. It's similar to what some people do in art, where they buy up pieces because they have a large collection already of maybe a similar piece, and that inflates the value of their whole portfolio. So that is interesting that MicroStrategy can continue to do this, and honestly, good for them. They're making a pretty smart play in my opinion, but we'll have to see a couple of years from now if it really pays off significantly, like I think and like a lot of other people think. KPMG, one of the top 4 accounting firms in the world, acknowledges the positive impacts of Bitcoin on the environment. There's been such a big push for Bitcoin to be destroyed, or for people to ban Bitcoin, countries to ban Bitcoin because of the economic impact, but more the environmental impact. At least that's what they say. Environmental impact of having so much extra energy usage. Now, KPMG goes through some of these different points. They go through demand response, recycling, heat, methane reduction, use of renewable energy. And there are definitely some uses of Bitcoin that actually help the environment. So I think it's good that this is being pushed out, and it is getting some publicity too. And this is a pretty trusted source for a lot of people. So anyone that wants to continue to say how bad Bitcoin is for the environment, maybe they don't know what they're talking about. Now, a clean Bitcoin miner, CleanSpark, is announcing their earnings. I believe it's next week, but they just came out and said that this last month they doubled their Bitcoin holdings. Keep in mind that they only had about 500 Bitcoin before. Now they have about 1,061 Bitcoin, and they've also increased their mining capacity to 9 exahash per second, which is 17% increase from last month. So I asked one of the people that's really high up at CleanSpark why they are holding more. Do they see something different for Bitcoin, some different outlook, or is it just that they didn't have a lot of expenses? And they did say that they're going to probably hit on that in the earnings report next week. So it is interesting. They are still pushing for 16 exahash by the end of the year, so almost doubling from where they are now. And they held almost all of their Bitcoin this last month. Like I said, they mined 575 and they sold 43. So that's just about $1.3 million worth of Bitcoin that they had to sell. So pretty cool that some miners are now holding. We'll see if that continues. Last thing I want to hit on, CZ just tweeted 4, which is basically saying to ignore FUD. He said this in the past, right before big pieces of bad news came out. So I'm kind of curious, what are your thoughts in the comment section as to what's going to come out next for Binance? Now, urgent update, I just got news as to what could be what CZ's talking about, and this is what it is. U.S. Justice Department is considering fraud charges against Binance. They're considering fraud charges against crypto exchange Binance, but are concerned about the cost to customers, according to people familiar with the matter. Federal prosecutors worry that if they indict Binance, it could cause a run on the exchange similar to one that befell now bankrupt platform FTX, causing consumers to lose their money and potentially spurring a panic in the crypto markets, the people said. Prosecutors are considering other options such as fines and deferred or non-prosecution agreements, according to the people. That outcome would be a compromise, holding Binance responsible for alleged criminal behavior while reducing consumer harm. So this is really interesting. Binance did not respond to a request for comment. If there is another bank run on crypto, if there's another exchange run, we could see liquidations. We could see people lose money. So if you haven't already pulled your money out now, I would highly suggest doing it. Pull your crypto out. Pull your money out, pull everything out of Binance if you can, because you don't know if you're going to be able to get access to it. And this is not just FUD. This is not worthless FUD. This is real FUD. This is real uncertainty and doubt and fear that you should have if you have crypto on Binance. And at this point, it seems like Binance has probably done some stuff wrong in the past. We just don't know what exactly it is. But it is pretty sketchy, some of the stuff that they've done. I hope that they make it through. I hope that they just get slapped with a fine. But honestly, I wouldn't mind a nice buying in price for Bitcoin again. If we fall back down, some people are calling for new lows. I don't think we'll hit there. But if we fell into the mid-20s, low 20s, I'd be fine with that because I want to buy more for the next halving. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Hopefully you got some value out of this, getting some of the top news. And if you want an update, like if you're too busy at work or getting ready in the morning to know what's happening with the market or to see maybe some good deals in the market, you can check out the link to the Patreon. Every single morning when the market opens or within about a half an hour, I give an update as to what the market's doing, some news that could be happening in the market. Then at night, I do the same thing when the market closes. So if you want that kind of access, click below for the Patreon. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.